Not so fast. Try to.
Now, it is for all sentient beings that we decide, or limited sentient beings filling the whole universe, countless in number, that we decide to recognize the true nature of our mind by means of following the instruction of Mahamudra and we perfectly want to accomplish this path in integrating our lives. With this noble motivation in mind, we would request that you may listen to him. Now, yesterday we entered the part of the prayer for the accomplishment of Mahamudra, which explains how to familiarize oneself with the true understanding of reality. And the general verse started with the line, unmoved by the wind and turmoil of our everyday affliction. And the second line is, be unstained by in the meditation, in the actual process of familiarization, be unstained by that type of training that is only intellectually produced. Generally speaking, there are two types of methods that we can use to familiarize ourselves. And one method is related to our body and the other to our mind. Talking about the body position, usually the recommendation is to adopt the 7 points of the body position of Vairocana. And within this position, the main thing is that the body is straight, the spine is upright and straight, and by resting in this position, automatically we have a favorable condition for the familiarization process. Reminding ourselves of the 7 points of the body position of Vairocana. Sometimes there are also 8, but here only 7 are mentioned. Then, first of all, we have to cross our legs upwards, which is the Vajra position of the legs. Then, secondly, to straighten one's shoulders in the way that is compared to the shoulders of a vulture. Then, thirdly, it is to have the spine straight and upright in the same way as an arrow that we just plant into the ground. And fourthly is to have this chin slightly bent downwards. Number 5, to leave a small gap between the teeth and the lips. 6, to press the tongue upright to the upper palatum. And number 7, to leave the breathing without any influence, just flow in and out naturally. So those have been the skillful methods to adopt a body position that is suitable for the process of familiarization. And secondly, the crucial points of how to abide mentally are as follows. Now, this line indicates there's something to avoid, which is the intellectually, consciously induced effort to familiarize oneself. And what could that be? So for one, if we were to train ourselves in the clarity of mind, or the emptiness, or we try to cultivate the emptiness and the clarity together, or we have the idea that we should get rid of thoughts, trying to avoid thoughts, or the opposite, we try to concentrate and focus on something particular. So in any case, this is an artificial way of familiarizing oneself. It is a way that is only intellectually or induced to something that is made up out of ideas. So how is then the correct way of adopting this process of familiarization? It is not obviously in some kind of effort that is built up on ideas. In fact, the correct way to familiarize oneself is to not influence mental operation at all. Now, then we have a mental operation that we could call, it's like a conception, it's building ideas, it's here more precisely a process of evaluation. Constantly we are engaged in marking something as good to adopt, we try to do that, or we're marking something else as bad, we try to avoid it, drop it, abandon it. Those two types of conceptual process of adoption and rejection, they have to be avoided. So it's not being engaged in marking something as good, trying to do that, and marking something as bad, trying to abandon it. In the text which is called the 700 verses of the transcendent type of intelligence or wisdom, Prajnaparamita, it is mentioned that being free of adoption and rejection towards anything that appears is the perfect way of integrating transcendent intelligence in one's life.
똑같나무 주선이 주마다 이놈다고 통인데 이놈 셈지 조수샤 나주 발은 가서 방안다는 거만 보이나 그 단계에서 조수샤는 말이에요. 그러나 나 매첨부 가져야나 농양 첨부 보고 농 첨부도 매일 조차도 그러고 들라고 근데 유는 방안 방수 버셔가지고 나주가 요 공제 동전 차도 송해도 다도 저는 항만요. 다도가 내가 지면 출구 다 보송 주선 좋아하는 출구를 다 보송 거 어떻게 단어기
신경나 매빠다 되는 미라레파-quotation.
신나라 매 가서 첨부연나 저는 양도 오늘 축 첨부연나 대도 나줄 바가 근데 지금 상황 감제들이 주마다보다 라시게 뭐루가 또 통나 근데 나와 그러면 가서 연나야 근데 저 차도 다른 하나도 상황 먹고 연나야 저 차도 뭐 내가 뭐 이거도 와 자꾸 게임 뭐 제가 요 이왕 괜찮지요 나줄 바가 근데 공부 공부 저 차도
There's a famous song, a spontaneous song of the great master of all yogis, Milarepa, which draws the line between the temporary meaning and the definitive meaning, and expressing it like this: whatever appears, and however it appears, by not recognizing for what it is delusion. And those appearances are what do bind us. We're bound and trapped by those appearances. For those who have realized the true meaning of those appearances, whatever appears is just a magical show. And the more appears, it becomes a help, a friend. Ultimately speaking, however, nothing whatsoever appeared. It is said that everything is just the unborn Dharmakaya, pure and unborn Dharmakaya. So that means then when things appear in this world and our life, taking them for true and real is what does bind us. In that such a way we are trapped in our deception, and those appearances create problems for us. If we do realize what those appearances are, that they are mere empty appearances, then appearances do not pose any problem anymore. Those appearances become a help, a friend, in such a way that we can compare it to a fire in the forest. For a fire in the forest, however much wind there's blowing, that wind will only just make the fire blaze stronger, even stronger, and so the wind does not become any more an obstacle, but it is a friend for that fire. In the same way, for those who have realized that the appearances of this life and this world are just mere appearances, empty of existence, the more appearances, the better. They're all opportunities to recognize their empty nature.
대인도 전에 공직값으로 전에 르세가 남도도 하고요 말해. 이나 지당도 당보 노동체를 가서 토산 가서라 르세 고고요 말해. 뭐 이제 당보네 로런데 돈을 두고 말아와. 당보 르세 그냥 오늘 양바 샤바다는데 연루 전에 르세 중심부 임하는 거다.
So saying here that the process of familiarization should be unstained by that type of effort that is built up on ideas, the intellect, should not say that this generally is bad. In fact, we have seen here very clearly that initially we need to depend on the power of our intellect and of our understanding. We have to rely on ideas to first listen properly what the Dharma information actually is about and to think about the meaning. But once we have, by the use of our intellectual power and our wisdom, we have correctly understood what the process of familiarization is all about. Once we have achieved the point of understanding what has to be trained, then the actual process of training doesn't need any effort anymore. We can just rest within that. And here then, when we reach this point, then any further effort built up on ideas is of no use.
다들 연구 상수들. 전에 다 다들 종수들, 준의 종수들라. 전에 마주 용마 뭐 요새봐.
Now we have learned about what are the favorable conditions to enter this process of familiarization. Secondly, we have seen just now what is the main point of this training, the main point being unstained by any effort that is induced by intellect or ideas. And thirdly, we should learn how to then continuously develop and to develop and cultivate this process of familiarization. The third line gives an indication for that, saying, knowing how to let mind just rest within itself, in the original state, free of any influence or manipulation.
대양 지당 전에 마주 용마서 마주스도 가리고 마주 가래서는 전에 나눠서 다다 남도 대비지지 마음바 인주인수 다다 외계 시발로 소개당인데 대만이 봐 되게 도서 대비지지 마음바 남도 인주인수 다다 외계 시발로 소주를 말하고 소샤마들라 마주스다.
So the advice first of all goes to that word is saying unartificially or without any influence to rest in that genuine nature. So unartificially means the opposite of what we are constantly engaged in. Constantly we dwell in our memories of what already has passed, or we worry about the future, or in the present moment we are engaged in manipulating what's happening right now. Here the recommendation is put in the words like this, saying, don't follow what already has passed. Don't try to receive what hasn't happened yet. Or don't try to anticipate what hasn't happened yet. And in the present moment, be without manipulation, without trying to influence.
대비 제 맞에서 가서 나랑 쪽에 로 남동 가 차와 되게 계속 만들었어. 가 심바디 계속 만들어. 이 마수스 마음ben 이 마수스 해야 돼. 마음바게 남도 용주르금 남도디 하다야 수유요 그래서 남도 치면 이 마수. 다들 왜 시발라 소주 매바 남밥소 샤스야 돼요. 이제 유유에 계속 되는데. 미국 유 가야 돼요. 미국 유 가야 매바 미국 유한 대소 미국 유나 대소 가야 매바 샤바데다 맞춰 봐서 말이죠. 그 말로 자사지 연예한테라 뜻을 말하는 거.
Now, then to explain that in more detail, the first thing, not to follow the past, means that we do not try to add on to thoughts, to thinking process that already has happened. The thoughts that already, thinking process that already are completed, no need to further go into that. And on the other hand, not to anticipate the future means that all those thoughts and thinking processes that haven't manifested yet but are just about to appear, we have no need to encourage them to come. So what is left over is the present. And it's related to the present, we shouldn't take any influence, means mind has to abide within itself, without any point of reference. To settle free of point of reference, nothing to concentrate on, nothing to focus on. The key point, however, here is that we are certain that there is actually nothing that we could focus on. If we believe that the whole world is full of objects and that we potentially could look at and we could use as an object of reference, and just now we decide, no, we don't want to look at that, then that's not the right way. It is by the understanding that in fact there is nothing in this world there as an independent existence, and so in fact there is nothing that exists there that we can use as an object of focus independently. And that way we let mind abide free of reference point.
저는 차진 강감만 나와. 때도 거기. 저는 sem나 때소면나 차자체리 대라 공진 집에 라면 창조 토성 뭐. 그래서 라면의 창조 토야라 다리샤도서나 미국 때소 탐제단 잡아. 미국 유 뒤에네 저는 들라 마셔봐라고 많이 봐. 유랑 유진지 참아타라 저가 이원 시행하나 맞주가 샤요나 그래 미국 사도 전부 어떻게 됐어 뭐. 어떻게 대라 공신지 구도 맞아 마오나 그게 말해 대라 공신지나 저는 라면이 창조 토도도
The famous quotation from the Bodhicitta Tilopa in his teaching about Mahamudra at the river Ganges in India expresses it as follows, saying, "Within mind there is no point of reference. This is Mahamudra. Familiarizing myself with that and getting used to it leads to the unsurpassable awakening, the Buddhahood." Saying that within mind there is no point of reference then means that in mind there is nothing to be identified that has certain characteristics and can be described as anything. In particular, one thing is not to be found, and this is that there is an outer, or that there is an object to focus on as opposed to an observer. So the dualistic split of something to focus on and someone who is focusing on, of perceived and perceiver, this dualistic split is not to be found anywhere in mind. So in that way, nothing at all can be found as a fixed point or a point of reference. You cannot hold on to anything in mind, and this is Mahamudra. However, just understanding this won't do. Familiarizing oneself with that and getting used to it, finally, then this leads to the unsurpassable awakening of Buddhahood.
대신도 사라하의 굴나양 데이터 투스 넘버 탐제도 이라 자르메 마른 유명한 등이 좀마 몸시 타니 다스 담고 몸스님 다스기 그마다 말해서는 되는 대바 몸마 다다 투스 넘버 탐제도 투스 넘버 군도 되네 이라 자르메 데 동바레 데 사와레 데 도라레 데 송주레 데 냠바니레 삼반다고 이라 자주제요나 데 양다고 말해서도 이라 자르메 맞춰서 이라 자르메가 되다 맞아와 따로 이라 미치는 건 내가 이라 자르메 맞춰 육명하서 돼 되네 연대 살을 제와다 되네 쥐는 살을 파사야라고 특별하게 쥐는 동지 이해해서 봐 연대 동지 랑세서 조대되게 미수되나 육마스라 하고 인도 이라 자르메 맞아 육명랑 대다와들 같으네 딩왕도 정통아 딩왕도 내통나 근데 공부하라 그랬어. 딩왕도 공부 굉장히 접속했는데 다음에 공부하기 위해서는 상황이 딱 되는 미국 유럽 동바당 사와당 그런 유럽세아도 기술적인 생활 상황 가운데 공부하는 거 공부생 말했어. 맞추는 거 내통나 공부를 했어.
Now, then there's another famous quotation from the great Brahmin, the Mahasiddha Saraha, who says, throughout all the 3 times, without interruption, not to be separated from being free of manipulation in mind, within this original state, to just maintain it. So this is called by the name familiarization or meditation. So throughout all the 3 times means past, now, and in the future, at any time, what has to be done is to be free of manipulation. And manipulation in mind is as that I set out to train something, like I want to train clarity, I want to train emptiness, I want to train the being free of thoughts, I want to train simplicity, anything that is trapped in the process of thinking something is good and I have to do that, or something is bad, I have to avoid that. So free of any type of influence, interference with mental operation. I should never be separated from that, being free of influence. And in fact, just dwell in the original state. The original state of mind is that which has been explained already so many times, the primordial purity of natural mind. The primordial purity that is endowed with all the qualities of a full-blown Buddha. So during a path, and during a path that of familiarization or meditation, never ever there's any quality to be added. Nothing good that has to be newly invented. Everything is already there from the beginning. And not the slightest stain has to be removed from that basic nature of mind. It is primordially pure. So, to dwell in this original state of mind by the means of having no interference or influence to mental operation, the only thing to be done is to just maintain it, just to dwell in that. And this process of just getting used to this natural state is called by the name familiarization or by the name meditation, whatever you want to say. So if you ask yourself, what is meditation or familiarization? It is just merely to dwell in this natural state by not engaged in influence or interference with mental operation throughout all 3 times.
以这等查瓦斯呀，这个土那的呀，我还冇用的，样回来，大瓦开始几个，大晚上瓦开始几个，我那多搞的，查查全部做了，那多搞回来下，但是那多搞呢，我们加上还想有大瓦中的，那多三个中那样卷的，那多明白中那样卷的，那多的考试呢搞的都现在，但是那多搞呀个路数是中风，对当，但是查查全部大瓦查个多，现在就是中风开始中风。
So saying then, this is the crucial point here of all this instruction, that one should be free of interference or influence as to the mental operation. Does not mean that we should stop thoughts. So in the past this has led also to a misunderstanding in Tibet. Some people misunderstood this instruction, saying you should not have any influence with the mental operation. Then they're thought of, they understood as avoiding thoughts. So any thought, may it be good thought or bad thought, had to be prevented. To try to find the method not to have any thought at all occurring. This view is sometimes also addressed by the name of Hashan's view. But anyway, this is a misunderstanding that is clearly contradictory to the process of meditation or familiarization in Mahamudra.
听着他，他们查查全部告诉他，那多搞不嘛的，那多搞有嘛的，那多特生，那多个良心的道，那多个良心就是所谓的中啊。第三样就那多艰难呀，吃不了嘛的，那多接触人，那多接话，这个多，因为那多接话当，那多个良心被看得到，那多个亲密看得到，对吧？大部都是嘛的，那多个良心的道嘛都。 因为样，那么多接触过程，那么多个接了推荐多那样卷引嘛，那么多个接了推荐多那，真的跑下来那个唱不下来路样，印度那么多接，那么多接那样，那么多个良心的大，那么多个亲密看的都是，那么多个接是大不完。
So one thing is clear that in Mahamudra, thoughts are not the problem. Thoughts may occur. Thoughts are not to be avoided. Thoughts are not to be prevented. Whenever a thought pops up, just to notice it, to just merely notice it, to look at it straight away and just merely notice it. This is the process of Mahamudra, familiarization. There's no need, however, that when the thought comes up, that we should follow this thought and that we should enter a process of thinking about this thought, because then we would just build up new habits of thinking. And the habituation of thinking process will not come to an end. So we just look at this thought whenever it comes up, take note of it, just be aware of it, be aware of that thought that comes up, and that's it. The great master of the lineage, Gyalpa Yangon, has clearly mentioned that if we engage in any fear that the thought may arise, so we don't like the thought, so we are kind of afraid of that the thought could come up now, or we engage in the hope that maybe we may be free of thoughts, then this will not become a proper way of familiarization. This is not the right way of training. So we might wonder, when this is the explanation of Mahamudra, but what about Vajrayana, Tantrayana? And in fact, we find that the point of view is not different at all, as the quotation shows from the famous Indian teacher, Sapani, who says that there is no meditation and no meditator, or there is no familiarization and there is no one to familiarize himself with that. There is no mantra, there is no deity. In the genuine nature, which is free of preconception and ideas, in fact, mantra and deity are fully present. So saying there is no meditation, no training, no familiarization, means there's nothing that there really existing that we can familiarize ourselves to, as opposed to someone who is doing this exercise. This whole split in idea of something being there that we have to train ourselves with, and that there is a person who trains himself, this is already a misconception. So free from this kind of idea of a meditator and meditation, this is the very basic nature, free of any preconception, free of any idea. And within this nature, no mantra is needed, no deity needed. All free from all those ideas. Then, within this freedom, in this basic nature, then truly mantra and deity are already completely present. Now, talking all the time about Mahamudra, finally we may wonder, what does it actually mean? So here we have found the solution. It is that there is no meditator. There's nothing to meditate on. And there is no intentional process of meditation. Or we can say, there's nothing that, no one to familiarize himself, there's nothing to familiarize oneself with, and there's no intentional process of familiarization, no effort. So free from all those three, and merely being not distracted from this freedom, to maintain it is the process of Mahamudra training.
tene tambo gunwa jutsu, pardo nyambar shaksu, tene tama chonsu. Tesundi, tene sembyongi mengaare, tendawe sembyongi mengaama nyamay, sembyongi nyamay tenda wala, tene langengi mengaarande, tene rangi yang josan kongde shagabe jene, tela yang tawa neto shosun.
Now, then we come to the last line of the verse, the last line of this verse that gives us a general introduction into the process of training of Mahamudra. The last line says, may I be skillful in how to put into practice this crucial point of mind or mind's reality. And may I be able to maintain it, cultivate it. So we remind ourselves of that this verse already has given us a threefold step to follow. It was first of all giving us the introduction, like how we can prepare ourselves for this training of Mahamudra, how we can enter this process of training, then how we have to understand what the actual training is, and thirdly it was about how to maintain it and continuously. So the final wish is, may I be skillful to take into practice the instructions that I have received from my own teacher. May I be skillful in cultivating the true nature of mind, familiarizing myself with that, and to maintain that.
Oh yeah, practically, tene khatang gaji, sharan gomza de jabu me lokhan resi.
Oh.
Me gaji namba de bu na complaint to you. She me de lu sharan. Se lu tene tada te is kamanga ro. Kan yang do kong na.
So this has been the conclusion of the general layout of the process of Mahamudra meditation. And as people have been complaining to Rinpoche in the past days, that he doesn't give any option to actually train it. Now we will do 5 minutes of meditation.
Tene tada kondo shebana debege je maji, omba gindu maso. Tene tada we shebana sojo meba. Tene sojo matama rangshin numa tene jo.
So what is the exercise about? What shall we do? As already said, not to follow the past, not to anticipate the future, not to influence in any way mental operation of the present, just to rest within the genuine nature.
So,
Questions, Fragen?